Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. Today's video is a little bit, I wouldn't say different, but it's just a fun way to do a tumbler tutorial. I'm going to take you through the step-by-step process of me creating a custom tumbler design. So I got this order from a friend who wanted a mama and Minnie themed cup. She gave me her color palette and of course we kind of just ran with that. So I want to show you just kind of a sneak peek behind the scenes of what it's like to create a custom order with me. So I hope you're along for the ride, but of course all the supplies I use for creating today's cups will be listed and linked down in the description box down below, and of course any discount codes that I have for you. Before you leave, be sure that you like this video and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already so that you can catch all of my videos every single Saturday. But let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. All right, so we are starting with a few cups here. And this is my glitter spread for today, but we are going to be using some tumblers from the Tipsy Magnolia. So I have both a 16-ounce plump and a 24-ounce plump with the Hydro Sport lids that we're going to be using to create today's custom order. So we're going to go ahead and start by, of course, prepping our cups, and that includes sanding our tumblers with a 60 grit sanding block, just something rough to really be able to scuff up the shiny surface of your tumbler. That way you have something for both your paint and your glitter and your epoxy and all that good stuff to stick to. So give this a real good scrub, then go ahead and either take it inside to wash with just dish soap and water, or what I typically do when I'm in my shop or in my craft space is I will just use 91% rubbing alcohol and a paper towel to get all of that sanding residue off of the tumbler. Once we are done with this, we are going to take this over to be spray painted, and I'm going to put the colors on the screen right here for the colors that I use. So I use all Color Shot colors because those are just my go-to spray paints. I absolutely love Color Shot because it dries so quick and the colors are so vibrant that I never have any issues with them like running in things that sometimes I run into with other brands of spray paint. So now for my favorite part of any custom order is, of course, we are going to glitter. So this tumbler was inspired by a color palette that I used on this tumbler, which I'll put right here on the screen. I made this in my Facebook group with a zebra print that I was practicing hand painting. And I, number one, love how this came out, but my bestie wanted to do a mama and Minnie cup set for her and her daughter. And she absolutely loves the color pink. So anything that's got like a pink vibe is just her jam. And so she had said she loved the colors that I had used on that cup that I did in my Facebook group and wanted me to use those colors and incorporate those into the mama and Minnie cup. So this is kind of our starting point here. And so she had no other suggestions for her cup design. She just allowed me to kind of create whatever my brain wanted to come up with for this design. So instead of doing a stacked colored ombre like the original cup looked like, I decided that we're going to do this in a swirl method. So I spray painted those colors on in a swirl, and now we're going to go ahead and glitter those. So we're going to start with our darkest color first here now that we've applied our thin coat of epoxy. I am using the epoxy method for glitter application because I do just find that I, of course, have way more working time with epoxy method versus using Mod Podge and such. So using epoxy to apply my glitter is just my go-to if I'm going to be doing anything more than 2 colors on a cup. And so since we're going to be doing a lot of blending here with the different glitters that we're using, of course I just want to make sure that I have enough time to blend without having to rush myself and getting those colors, of course, to then or that glue or adhesive, I should say, to begin to dry up on me. So we're going in with our darkest colors here, and I'll go ahead and put on the screen right here in the corner here the colors that I'm using today. Of course, they'll be listed down in the description box as well. Most of them are baddie glitters. Actually, I think all of them are baddie glitters. So definitely be sure to check out myramakes.com, and you can use my code Alicia to save yourself a little bit of money. So we're going to go ahead and finish our colors here. I like to start with the darkest colors because typically those ones sometimes can overtake a little bit, and then I like to backfill with my lighter colors. You certainly could go the other way too. I just, for whatever reason, always go with the darkest because then I'm less likely to also contaminate my lighter glitters with my darker glitter. I feel like it's easier to blend that way too. I don't know. Just the way that my brain works and how I like to create. So then we're going to go in with this next color, which is kind of like the next shade that kind of goes in the order of, you know, the colors darkest to lightest here. So we're going to go ahead and go in with this next. So this is the only glitter color that is not from Baddie Glitter. I knew there was one that wasn't here. But certainly any hot pink-ish would work. Also a really like pretty coral also would look pretty. So I did use Summer Pedicure on the cup like I showed the spray paint wise for this section, because I wanted there to be 3 distinct pinks, shades of pink on the actual cup, so that I could designate where each color was going to be placed. So now we'll go in and kind of fill in that section with Tilly from Baddie Glitter, just to fill up a little bit of that space. And as you notice, I'm doing both cups at the same time because I'm using a, you know, longer cure epoxy to apply my glitter versus, again, using Mod Podge. I'm able to do both glittering sessions at the same time. Certainly you don't have to do this. You could do one at a time, but when I'm going to be doing a cup that is supposed to match the other, so like, you know, the same style cup, I find that it's easier to glitter them both simultaneously and not one after another, because then I tend to get a closer look to each other when I do it this way. I promise there's a method to my madness. This is just the way my brain works. So then we're going to go ahead and fill in this final section here with the lightest color that we have to fill in the rest of that swirl. Now we are going to be adding, of course, some swirl elements, Milky Way-ish vibes to this as well, to sort of just make this Mama and Minnie set just look adorable. So I'm not super stressed about blending, but certainly this would have been an opportune time to go back and with my darker colors and of course try and blend them to the next shade next to them to give a little bit more of a blend. If this was just going to be just glitter, then I would have actually spent more time blending those colors and stacking colors on top of one another. So using different cuts of glitter to give myself extra sparkle. So now that the cups have been glittered, I'm just going to go ahead and smush the glitter with just a piece of cardstock here. And this is really just going to help lay my glitter as flat as possible so that I don't need to add as thick of a coat of epoxy. So I did then take this over after it was done curing that first layer of epoxy. I did then spray seal these, just a quick spray seal with clear spray paint, before going in with my first coat of epoxy. So my first coat of epoxy for a cup that is 24 ounces is anywhere from 15 to 25 mLs. And then for my 16 ounce, usually 10 to 15-ish. It really just depends. It really kind of just depends on how flat your glitter is. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be less, depending on, again, how much your glitter is laying flat. Your first coat may be a little bit thicker. I typically will do super thin coats of epoxy. That's just the way that I work. I find I get way less issues with micro bubbles even after torching if I keep my coats thin. If my coat of epoxy is too thick, that's where I run into situations where I end up with micro bubbles in certain sections even after I've torched and it's cured. So going in with thin coats is it's just the way to go. So we are going to set this up for, of course, the Milky Way process of this. We're going to add a little bit of colorant too to our pots of epoxy that we're going to use to create our lines and strings across the tumbler. So right now I've mixed up about 60 mLs of epoxy together. Maybe less. It might have only been 30 mLs. And I'm just putting enough epoxy on each of the cups right now. Since they are relatively smooth, I am just putting enough to coat them so that they're slick to the touch. So enough that my gloved hand can glide very easily up the length of the cup. And that's when I know I have enough epoxy. I don't want to coat this so that it is completely like a full coat, if that makes sense, because I know I'm going to be adding more epoxy, and what I don't want to happen is for there to be too much epoxy that I then am going to have an issue where like the epoxy is literally dripping off of the cup, right? Which is not what we want. So we've split up the remainder little bit of epoxy that we have left, which was about 15 mLs. I've just split them as evenly as possible across a few cups here, a couple of cups here. So we're going to use a hot pink pigment that I literally think I got off Amazon like 5 years ago. I'm not even gonna lie to you. So I will attempt to find that, and if I don't find that, I definitely will link something similar. So just any hot pink pigment that you have, and then I mixed in a little bit of like a pale pink paint, and I'm going to add a little bit of white as well to just lighten it a little bit. So I didn't want this to be a full Milky Way, which is where you just use white, either epoxy dye or just white acrylic paint. I wanted it to kind of go with the pink theme that we have here. So that's why I decided to go with more of a pale pink look versus going with just stark white. So I'm going to go in, and since I added probably a good squeeze of the paint, what you'll notice when you use acrylic paint on your in your pots of epoxy is that sometimes it creates this stringy texture. Now, if you're doing Milky Ways, this is actually perfect because it really helps you control with the stick or, applicator you're using to apply your epoxy. It really helps you control where your line goes, and you don't have to do as much sort of like painting on the cup like you're seeing me do right now with the hot pink color. So because that stringy texture is there, it actually works in my favor, and that's like my favorite way to create sort of like that Milky Way look, is to use acrylic paints, because I really do love that stringy texture. It just allows me to have a little bit more control of where the paint is going, and I just feel so much better about how my Milky Ways kind of look when I do it that way, when I use just acrylic paint. Now, of course, you can use pigments, you could use micas, you could use alcohol inks if you wanted to. Those all work. They all just have, they create a different kind of consistency in your epoxy. Acrylic paint is going to make things stringier. A pigment is really just going to blend with it. It might make it a little bit thicker, but that's really about it. Alcohol inks are going to do the least to your epoxy, just because it is such a diluted, liquidy, watery form that you really aren't going to change the consistency of your epoxy. So what I'm doing now is I've put both the light pink strings of acrylic paint tinted epoxy and my hot pink, and now I'm going in with my gloved hand and I'm just kind of flattening those sections out. So I am being like very particular, so like using my pointer finger for just the pale pink areas, using my middle finger or ring finger for the hot pink areas, so that I'm not contaminating the colors as I sort of flatten those sections out. You could also choose to introduce heat here. That would be an option as well. But remember, when you use heat on your Milky Ways, that is going to make those colors flow across your cup, okay? So if you're already pretty happy with where things are stationed and where you've applied them, then don't apply heat and just kind of either go in with a craft stick or whatever applicator you're using to flatten those out if they're just too perfect, too much of a perfect string of epoxy. Use that instead, or use your gloved hand as I am. So once I got the initial sort of flattening out of all those colorants, I'm going back and just adding things where I feel like they need to be added. In some sections, I'm layering both the light pink with the hot pink to just give a really cute look. And really just playing around with this. Milky Ways are my absolute favorite to create, just because I know sometimes they can be intimidating, but I promise you they really aren't. You just get to play in epoxy. I don't know. I guess that's just what is the fun of it for me. You also could choose to, add glitter to your epoxy and apply, like a chunky glitter, maybe sprinkle a little bit of that in. I don't know. Milky Ways are just really fun, and I haven't done one in a good while. So this really brought back those like old school Leisha B vibes that I was getting as I was creating this, and it's a like full like monochromatic kind of look that I'm just eating up right now. So after I feel like I am done, I try not to do too much because sometimes I can go too far. But once I feel like I've got my colors where I want them to be, I'm going to go ahead and torch this, which is going to pop any of those bubbles, get that epoxy to settle, and get those bubbles to come to the top. And we'll set this aside to cure, okay? While that was curing and finishing up, I'm going to go ahead and get my decals ready. So I will tell you right now that I fought so hard for my life with my Cricut. Like, I don't know. My Cricut and I have a serious love-hate relationship, and my Cricut is currently staring at me as I'm recording this voiceover, but my Cricut and I have like the most ridiculous love-hate relationship. Sometimes she is so good to me, and she does exactly what I say. And other times, particularly when I'm either tired or when I don't have a lot of time to fuss with her, she likes to put up a little bit of a fight. So I fought for my life a little bit cutting these. I went in to Cricut Design Space. I didn't record this section because I fought so much with it that I just didn't even have time to go back and record this. I picked a font that I found off of Creative Fabrica. It's called Heartbeat. I will link it in the description box. And then I just chose, 3 vinyls that I wanted to layer on top of one another. This is like the bottom one that I just weeded is one of I think it's the Opal Pearlescent vinyl from Tech Wrap. And then I have white. And then I have, I think it's the Make It brand, like hot pink. I do not recommend the Make It brand vinyl. I don't know if anybody has had success with it, but I have had nothing but difficulty using this vinyl. It's super cheap, and rightfully so, because it's a pain in the rear end to work with. So 0 out of 10 do not recommend this vinyl. I had to cut it. I think I sent it through my Cricut 3 times. And still, you're going to watch me fight for my life to get it to just do what it needs to. So 0 out of 10 do not recommend it. But I absolutely loved this color. And it just matched the whole vibe. So, like, I couldn't not include it. Because I didn't have anything else that was comparable. And sometimes once you see the vinyl color that you just need to have, like, you just choose the hard way and you just choose to fight with it. So that's why we ended up with this vinyl. So I did an offset. So I did the original font in Cricut Design Space. Then I created an offset of that, which is what the white is. And then of that offset, I created another offset, which is what created the pearlescent opal down at the bottom. Now, I decided to negate and forget the opal pearlescent because once I stacked the pink on top of the white, I was like, this is it. This is where I stop. This is where I go. I'm not going any farther. I don't think that I need the opal pearlescent, I'm just like, no, it's not a vibe. So we're going to go ahead and layer these, speed session through this, and then we can get these applied to the cup, okay? So obviously I want to apply these in the same section on both cups so that, again, we have a matchy cute set. So I've got my transfer tape on there. I like to apply from the middle and smooth out from either side, which kind of just pushes and forces the air to go out in either side and not get trapped in the center. And then we'll go ahead and use my little squeegee to burnish that all down and then remove that transfer tape. So here's the mini cup. So cute, so adorable. And we'll go back in with the mama cup here. Again, same idea, we're just going to apply it across that lighter pink section. I think it would have looked just as pretty with along the darker sections, but because that was a smaller section, it just made more sense to put it in the wider section across the front on the light pink section. So same idea here. We'll go ahead and get that applied, pull off that transfer tape, and like, ta-da, I guess, right? Ta-da, this is it. So once this is done, these cups will go back on the turner, which I believe I do show you in this video as well. But before I do my final coats, I always like to sign the bottom of these. I know this is like, everyone has different thoughts on if you should sign as the artist in the bottom of your cups, if you shouldn't, if you should put your logo there, if you shouldn't, if you just should put a care sticker there. I have not listened to any of that, and I choose to sign them. Even though it's a custom order, it's still something that I created with my hands, and I'm proud of my work. And honestly, 90% of people aren't looking at the bottom of their cups anyway. So if they have a problem with me signing the bottom of the cup, then they're not my customer base. Because again, it is a work of art. It is my own creative thought process and creative skills with my own 2 hands. So I should be able to sign that work just like every other artist in their paintings and such. So I'll get off my soapbox now. So we're going to go ahead and apply our final coats of epoxy here. So I am using Flynn Sister Supply Shop Artist Cure Epoxy. And I am mixing up, I think I mixed up 30 mLs here. I used about 20 on the 24 ounce and then less than 20, probably more like 10 to 15 on the 16 ounce cup that's on the right side here. But we're going to go ahead and just smooth this over. The idea here is just to have enough coats of epoxy to cover your decal so that your final coat is completely smooth all the way around. So that could take anywhere from 1 to 2 coats of epoxy. Something that I didn't mention, but I totally did do is after I finished the Milky Way and before I put the decals on, I did sand both my top and bottom rims and edges so that we have a nice smooth final coat of epoxy. I realized I didn't record the sanding, but sanding is very much part of the process, even though it is like the one part of the process I don't really love, but it is very much a part of the process. And typically that always happens typically after the first 2 coats of epoxy and before the final coats of epoxy, to make sure all surfaces are smooth and good to go before we do our final coat, so that we don't have to go in and sand any further. So I'm applying again this entire pot of epoxy on this cup, and then we can go ahead and torch these to pop all of the bubbles, and then we'll get into the process of cleaning these cups up so that they can be packaged and sent on their way to their new home. So these are always so much fun to make. I love making like matchy match sets, and I haven't done a custom order in a long while, and it's my own fault because I don't often like promote that I do custom orders very often. I really need to get better about that. But it was just so reminiscent of like my early days in creating like matchy match cups, and just being able to have the creative freedom and liberty to be able to take someone's color palette and just do whatever my brain comes up with. And Milky Ways were always like my go-to, because it's just, Milky Ways are a whole vibe. Like, if you haven't tried the Milky Way technique, you are solely missing out. This is like one of the earlier tumbler designs that were out there back when I first started, and they're just so much fun. Any color palette will work. Mixing color palettes will work too. Oh, they just always come out so beautiful. So we're gonna go ahead, and after these have cured, we have to do our final prepping, which is to clean these cups up. So of course they've got an epoxy on the top rims. They've got, you know, paint inside of them. So we're going to go ahead and run our craft knife along the edge to pop off any of that epoxy that landed on the top rim here. And then we will go ahead and take our acetone and a paper towel and clean out the inside. What I do love to use, but I realized I didn't have any at this time, is typically what I find really does a great job of getting any residue out of the inside of your cup is to use a magic eraser. It doesn't have to be the magic eraser brand, but it can just be, I think they're called melamine sponges. I'll find them. I find a big pack on Amazon, and I typically will just buy those because they're also really perfect for like applying alcohol inks too. So that's why I typically have them, but clearly I'm out. Anyway, that really does a fantastic job of getting the rims inside of the cups really clean. I find with paper towels, for whatever reason, it works, but it just takes a little bit more elbow grease than those sponges do. So if you're looking for like a quick and easy like cleanup duty with, you know, paint and things inside of your cup, I definitely would recommend using like a magic eraser or just those type of sponges, because they really do help with getting all of that residue out from the inside of your cup. So once these have been thoroughly cleaned out, I will take these upstairs to give them a thorough hand wash with just soap and water, and then we'll go ahead and add our tops, and here you go. So this was so much fun to make. It also comes with just a regular push lid as well. So this is a cup that has 2 styles of lids, which is perfect for a mom and Minnie on the go all of the time. I absolutely hope that my bestie loves these. I know that she will, because she absolutely loves the color pink. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. This was a nice throwback to my early days in creating, so I can't wait to do more tutorials like these. So if you loved today's video, give this video a huge thumbs up, and definitely be sure to leave me a comment, and I'll see you guys again, of course, in the next one next week. Bye!